So again, thank you all for being here for the Situational Employee Engagement webinar. Most of you know me, but my name is Matt Heller, and I am super excited that so many people have signed up to talk about this really, really important topic. And when we talk about situational employee engagement, to me, this is really the combination of a couple of different concepts. Number one is situational leadership. And I know a lot of you have heard that term, really focusing on how we change and grow and tweak our leadership depending on what situation that we're in. But also this concept of employee engagement. We all have heard that, and we've all worked on that at some point throughout our career. And you know, I think especially now we are in a new situation that none of us have been in before, and this is a new opportunity for us to look at employee engagement a little bit differently. So that's why I called this situational employee engagement, because all of us right now are in the COVID-19 situation, if you will. Right? We're all in the same boat. We're all kind of trying to figure this out together. But even within COVID-19, even within this situation, we've got sub-situations, right? Because some of you are probably working with people that are still working. Maybe they're taking care of a facility, or they're taking care of your animals, if you have animals at your facility. You may have people working from home for the first time, like you are. You may have people that have been furloughed or laid off, and you know, how do you engage with them? You may have people that you already started your training for the year, and now they're kind of on pause, on hold. You're hoping that they're going to come back and want to you know, work with you and work with your guests and work with your teams, and how do you keep those folks engaged? So really situational employee engagement really does run the gamut in terms of all the different situations that we have to think about. So one of the goals today, one of the things I really want to focus on is some of those best practices. What are those things that people are already doing to engage their teams in many different situations, and how can you tap into some of those things and see if they'd be right for your organization and your teams? But I also want to share sort of a template with you that you can use no matter what situation you're in, to figure out what it is that your team members need to really, you know, foster engagement and foster loyalty and make them want to be productive for you. So again, kind of going back to the title, situational employee engagement, you know, having a template or a roadmap so that you can figure this out for any situation, I think is a really important sort of next step. Because think about this too. Right now, we're in the midst of this unprecedented pandemic, but at some point, hopefully in the future, very soon, we're going to be able to open our gates and open our doors. And when we do that, we're going to have different situations that we're going to be faced with. You know, you're still going to have brand new employees that are nervous about having their first job. But now you've got this other layer of COVID-19 on top of that. You might have people that are nervous about coming back to work. So that's a different situation. So again, really the situational employee engagement really has a lot of different ways that we can apply it throughout our workspaces. So again, I thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to focus on this for you and your teams. So I know that I know a lot of you already on the call, but just in case some of you I don't know, or you don't know me, my name is Matt Heller. I've been in the attractions industry for just over 30 years. I started as a ride operator at Canopy Lake Park up in New Hampshire. And I've worked my way kind of around the industry. I've spent some time with Cedar Fair, spent some time at Universal down in Orlando. And in 2011, I stepped away from Universal and started my own company called Performance Optimist Consulting. And what I get to do now is really the best thing I could ever think of, is get to work with wonderful leaders like yourselves, really to make sure that you've got all the tools, resources, and skills you need to be the best you can be, and so that your teams can be the best they can be. And so that's really what I've dedicated myself to since opening my company in 2011. And right off the bat, I also wanted to share all of my contact information, share where you can find me on the socials, because you know, this is going to be jam-packed with a lot of information in this webinar, but I don't want you to feel like this is it. So if there's a question that you have after this, if there's follow-up that you want to do, please feel free to reach out. You can call me. That's my cell phone number. You can text me. You can find me on any of those social media outlets. Please feel free to reach out. There's no question that's too out there. I'm happy to answer any question that you have. Again, whether it's about what we're going to be talking about today, or about anything that has to do with leadership, employee engagement, kind of HR best practices. I'm happy to talk about any of that kind of fun stuff. And after the webinar, I will give you some other ways that we can stay in touch and continue these conversations, and hopefully, again, provide the tools and resources that everybody here needs to make sure that you're getting the best out of yourselves, and then make sure you're getting the best out of your teams. So a couple of quick things logistically before we jump in too far. I did mention that, I'd love to see as many faces as possible. So if you don't have your camera on and you're comfortable doing that, go ahead and turn on your camera. I will be asking for some input throughout our time together. So there's a spot if you click on the participants, then there's a raise your hand button, and you can raise your hand or literally raise your hand if your camera's on, so that you can let me know that you want to participate. Also through the chat box, you can participate that way as well. So again, wanting to make this as participative as we can. I do also want to respect your time, and so we will be ending at 3 o'clock. The formal portion of the webinar, we may get done a little early, and certainly we can open things up for questions, but I'm also happy to stay on afterwards. So if there's something you want to talk about, if there's something that you want to go over, I'm happy to stay on the call as long as you guys need, and we can talk about whatever you want after that. Okay? All right. So with that, I'm going to jump into our content here, the content of the webinar of situational employee engagement. And I really wanted to start us off with something to kind of think about a little bit. And I found this great quote from Marilyn Houston, the CEO of Lockheed Martin. And here's what Marilyn has to say. She says, "In times of uncertainty, employees crave clarity. As a leader, you won't always have all of the answers. No one expects you to. So you must be open to listening and learning from others. Once you understand a particular challenge and outline the options, you have to make confident and you have to be confident in making bold and optimistic decisions." And I think personally, one of the toughest parts of this is, we're asking to be certain and clear for our teams, but we're not certain or clear ourselves. So that makes this a little bit more difficult. So I'd love to hear your perspectives on this. So I'm actually going to stop sharing this right now. So I should be able to come back to the pictures. And I think I saw that somebody already had their hand up to chat. If you'd like to put your hand up, or either virtually or just put it up like that, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So Dana Carroll has your hand up. I don't know if you knew you had your hand up, but would love to hear your thoughts on that quote.
You just continue on. I want to hear you talk.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. So if anybody else has a thought on that particular quote, what that might mean to you, what that might mean, especially at this time that we're going through, I would love to hear those perspectives. And I'm just kind of scrolling through.
I think, hi, I'm Carla from
Hey,
MSI.
Carla.
I think the last point you made about they crave certainty, but we don't really have it ourselves is really poignant. And I think acknowledging that has been really powerful for us, acknowledging that, even as leaders, we have anxiety about the uncertainty. We are, considering every option, but we don't necessarily have all the answers. I think that just helps people know that they're not alone.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. And I think part of that is finding those things that we can be certain about, right? Like we can be certain about the fact that we care about our team members, right? We can be certain about that. We can be certain about that at some point we're going to reopen. We don't know what that looks like, but we can definitely be positive about that. Looks like Matt Arand has his hand up as well.
Yeah, I think it's easy to just to kind of sit and wait. So when there's this much ambiguity, it's hard to make a decision and to know what the landscape is going to look like as it goes forward. So I think being, might pull out some of the indecisiveness in all of us. And we know that if we make decisions, it's going to have financial impacts on the organization. It's going to, change how people work. And so it's certainly a challenge, I think, as a leader to make decisions at some point and to pick a direction and move in that direction.
Yeah, I think that last point that she makes about making those bold and optimistic decisions, it's really tough, right now because we don't have all the information. But I think, the people that are trying to make those decisions and looking forward, we're trying to make the best decisions we can right now, and we may not make the right decision. And that's okay, right? We're going to have time to pivot. We're going to have time to kind of make things right. So I think one of the things that we don't want to do is get so mired in, am I making the right decision, that we don't make any decision, right? So, paralysis or analysis by paralysis. We want to try to avoid that. We, sometimes making a decision is better, even if it's not quite right or if it's not perfect, it can be better than no decision whatsoever. So thank you both, Matt and Carla, on that. I do appreciate that. Again, I think that's a really poignant way to kind of start this conversation, knowing that, there are going to be things that we're uncertain of, and, what our employees need from an engagement standpoint, they need clarity. So again, what are those things that we can do to provide some clarity for those folks? So moving on, I want to talk a little bit about employee engagement in general. And the question that we typically ask when we talk about employee engagement is, what do they want, right? What do our team members want? And I've been in so many conversations and so many meetings where we're talking about, okay, we've got these employees, we've got to figure out how to, incentivize them and engage them. So what is it that they want? And I think by asking that question, we actually get the wrong answers, because we're thinking about what people want. And is it better hours? Is it more money? Is it, different working conditions? Is it, all these different things that people may want? And yeah, they may want those things now, but those wants may change, right? And those wants might be different for different people. So sometimes when we ask this question, what do they want? It takes us down these rabbit trails that we can't really figure out what's going to engage everybody. But that also kind of gets us back to situational employee engagement, because now we have to think about, okay, what is it that we can do for individuals or smaller teams that will actually help engage them? So my challenge to you, or my thought to you, is to actually change the question. So when we think about employee engagement, let's not ask, what do they want? But let's ask, what do they need? And I think right now, we can probably assess that relatively easily, right? People need support. They need our guidance. They need a listening ear. They need, some of this emotional support. And when I talk about employee engagement, especially when we talk about what people need, what I really want to talk about, and what we'll talk a lot about on this webinar today, is really tapping into the emotional needs that we have as human beings, right? And the emotional needs that all of our team members have, because every single person on the planet has the same emotional needs. We may all want different things, and we may all express our wants in very, very different ways, but there are certain things that every single one of us needs. And if we can, as employers and as leaders, can provide those things, we can help people feel more fulfilled. And when we can help people feel more fulfilled, then we can help them feel more attached and more connected and really a part of the team. So a big part of what we're going to be talking about today when it comes to how to engage our employees, especially in different situations, is really asking that question, what do they need? So we're going to come back to that in just a little bit. But there's one thing that I think that is really important to acknowledge and identify in terms of one need that pretty much all of us have right now, and it's around this concept of grief. We all need to get over the grief that we're feeling. And when I talk to a lot of people, they could be in any one of these areas of grief, right? Some people still are in denial. This is not happening, right? Some people, and I know I've been angry, right? When I get emails and says, hey, we're going to have to postpone, we're going to cancel the gig. I got angry at first because I wasn't really understanding everything. And, people go through each one of these steps of grief. And part of our job is to be there to kind of help people through that, while at the same time, we may be going through these as well. I would imagine that most people on the call today have gotten at least somewhere near that acceptance phase, because you've accepted that this is the new normal for right now, and we need to engage our teams and we need to move forward. So I would imagine that most people on the call today have kind of accepted where we are. But that doesn't mean everybody has. That doesn't mean that everybody is in the same spot with grief. You might be dealing with people that are depressed. You might be dealing with people that are angry. You might be dealing with people that are trying to bargain their way out. And that is a whole different layer of employee engagement, and we may not be the right people to deal with that, right? And I think that's one of the things that we can provide as leaders potentially are resources for people who are going through this really heavy period. And I'll give you a quick example. There's a coaching group that I'm working with right now, and we had started actually prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is a coaching group that was already online anyway, so social distancing, we were just fine. But there's one member of that group who was having some anxiety, and they were actually feeling some anxiety about being on the calls and anxiety about what's going on in the world. And quite frankly, I'm not equipped to handle that, right? Talking to her managers, they weren't really feeling equipped to handle that. And I actually just got a text from her yesterday that she's got an appointment to see a therapist, in early May, which is fantastic because that's the route that she has to go. Part of the reason I bring this up is not only for us to understand that we may be in one area of this grief process or another, our team members might be as well. And again, that's a different layer that we kind of add on to the employee engagement formula. But then, but I also want to reiterate that this is not something that we necessarily have to do alone, right? We shouldn't have to, bear the brunt of trying to deal with something that we're really not equipped for. And people are going through a lot of emotions right now that we may not be able to handle. So if there's an employee action or employee assistance program that you might have, or there are other resources that you know of in your community, I think it's really great to be able to tap into those for your team members that might need them. And that's really why I bring this up, is because, you as leaders, you need to have all the tools and resources that you need. And some of that might be, going to somebody outside. You don't have to feel like you have to go it alone. So keep this in mind, keep this kind of the phases of grief in mind, because again, we're kind of all going through that at the same time. So speaking of kind of how we're feeling and, grief being one of those feelings that we're feeling, I want to get to sort of the best practices and how we can kind of formulate our employee engagement strategy so that we can create these strategies no matter what the situation is. And to me, it really comes down to these three things. Every person needs positive attention. Every person needs to feel like somebody else cares about them. So, and we're going to dive into each one of these a little bit deeper. But each person on the planet needs to know that they have somebody kind of looking out for them. So providing some positive attention. And we all know what happens when people don't get enough positive attention. They typically act out just to get some negative attention. So one of the things we'll talk about is how do we provide positive attention to people so that they know that we are on their side. Again, with connection, one of the things that we do in our industry is bring people together and we connect people. And that's one of the things that people have really been struggling with right now, because we haven't been able to connect. But if we can figure out ways to, provide some connection with our team members, whether it's with themselves, with their peer group, with us as leaders, with our company, then they can feel like they have a connection to their outside world, and that's going to help them feel more engaged in what they're doing. And the last one, of course, is purpose, giving people a why, kind of being their beacon of hope, if you will, letting them know that we will get through this. We just don't know how just yet. So again, I want to go a little bit deeper into each one of these, and we're going to start with attention. So to me, this is about acknowledging people's value as a human being. And, when we're talking to people in person and we're interacting with people in person, it can be as easy as smiling as you walk by. It can be making eye contact. It could be just saying hello, or, just a head nod, something very, very simple that way. Now, I think it may be a little more complicated, but at the end of the day, our team members just need to know that somebody is thinking about them, right? That they're not out there all on their own. And one of the things that I've heard that has been really, really effective for one organization, actually the Florida Aquarium down in Tampa, is that their CEO, Roger German, has been sending personal notes to his team, right? Whether they've been furloughed or whether they're still working, he's sending handwritten personal notes to them about how much he appreciates what they're doing, thanking them for, their patience, acknowledging that this is a really tough time. And he said that the outpouring of support he's gotten back has been just tremendous. And it's very simple. It's a simple handwritten note. And I know a lot of times we're thinking of what's the best way that we can get, to as many team members as possible. We're going to send something out in email. We're going to do a newsletter blast. We're going to put it on social media, and we're going to get everybody. Well, that's okay for sending out information, but it's not as good for that personal attention that people desperately crave. They crave clarity. People are craving the attention. So that handwritten note has been something that he said has been just fantastic. One of the things that I've done, and I know a lot of other people have done, is just having a phone call with someone, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. It's very different to get on the phone with someone and actually hear their voice and be able to interact with them. It's very different to do that again than to send out an email and just say, hey, please let us know if you have any questions. Well, that's a nice start, right? But when people are looking for attention, they're looking for someone to provide some proactive attention. They're looking for you to reach out and provide the attention, provide the acknowledgement, to know that you are actually just thinking about them, even in this time. And that brings up something that's really, I think, important to this conversation is the ability to listen. Right? We all know that listening is a really important leadership tool. And now more than ever, your ability to really listen, if someone's angry and they're just venting, or if they're depressed and they just need somebody to talk to, your ability to just listen is incredibly engaging. And I'll give you some stats behind why that's so powerful. There's a professor in Winter Park, Florida, and he studies listening. He calls himself the listening doctor. And he says that the emotional impact of being listened to is so close to that of being loved that most people can't tell the difference. I think that's worth repeating. The emotional impact of being listened to is so close to that of being loved that most people can't tell the difference. So if you can listen, and I mean truly listen to someone, then they will get the idea that you care about them. And by the way, the same body language and attention tactics play whether you're doing a Zoom call or you're in person. If you say to someone, let's say you're on a one-on-one Zoom call and you say, hey, tell me about your day, and then you start doing this, right? Not engaging. So you've got to be, as engaging and engaging as you possibly can be while you are listening to them. So this attention one is really about, just providing people an opportunity to know that somebody is thinking about them. Someone's got their back. One last thing I will share about that one, and then I want to get some input from you guys as well, is that sometimes us just saying, call me if you need me, may not be enough. Again, people are maybe looking for some proactive attention. And where I really learned about this, as many of you know, my wife was in the hospital at the end of 2019, and we saw a lot of nurses coming and going throughout the room. And, every single one of them would say, call us if you need us. And, I really started thinking there's certain times when, yeah, I would call them. It was a big enough deal that I needed to call the nurse. But sometimes I was just like, we could probably take care of this ourselves, and I don't really have to. So I think your team members are probably thinking that as well-intentioned as we may be by saying, call us if you need us. They may not, for whatever reason. They may think you're too busy. They may think that you're dealing with something else. They may think that, well, they said it, but I'm not really sure if they meant it. I'm not really sure how that conversation is going to go. So I might shy away from actually reaching out to them. So again, when it comes to attention, I encourage you maybe to be a little more proactive than you think you might have to be. So maybe you're picking up the phone, you're sending out the note first, just to kind of get that conversation going. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of when it comes to attention. And again, I would love to get your input about either what you're already doing when it comes to providing some positive attention to your teams, or what are things that you might think you could do to provide some positive attention to your team. So feel free to raise your hand either like that way. David Crandall has raised his hand. Go for it.
Yeah. Hey guys, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. One of the things that I've seen and been trying to do myself as well is when you have staff reaching out to you, or even guests reaching out to you, a lot of times they just kind of want that person to talk to. So responding to them quickly whether it be through actual phone call or email or text message, but it's just almost kind of that reaching out to seeing that they want to get that response. So with staff, when they reach out and say, hey, what's going on? Is it going to be another week before I come back? They may not even necessarily need that specific return date. They just want to know, kind of give me an idea what's going on and talk to me, engage with me. So being able to reply to them quickly and earnestly, I think is important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just what you just said, just engage with me, just talk to me about something, right? I want to know, it's like that old Pink Floyd song, is there anybody out there? Right. So just being able to connect with people that way. That's awesome. Megan Campbell, you've got your hand up too.
So we made a first round of phone calls, and those went fairly well. People interested in talking for sure, but obviously we also ended up leaving some voicemails. So for round 2, I hope I can explain this clearly, but we found with our group, just a young workforce, that a lot of times they don't want to call. They just don't want to make the call in. So our round 2 is that we're going to put a message out to all of them that says, hey, we're not trying to hound you, but if you are interested in another call, just write back, email us back and say, yes, please call me. And we will take the quote unquote burden of making the phone call to them, or whatever form of communication is comfortable for them. Just because a lot of times they don't want to call because they think they're like interrupting our day. So we're going to interrupt their day if they want us to, is kind of how round 2 is going to go.
That's fantastic. And I love the fact that you said, you're not going to hound them, right? You're doing this on their terms, right? And you may find that some people want a lot of interaction, a lot of attention, and some people are okay, just, kind of holding back. So it's okay to not do it for everybody, the same. And that's why we're talking about situational employee engagement. Love it. Love it. Ron Terry, you've got your hand up as well.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yep.
All right, so we started to send out weekly communication with our team, and currently we're working on newsletters. But the past couple of weeks, we've been sending out surveys from SurveyMonkey, just interacting with them, asking them a question or two, and then the next week we've been posting their results so they can see how their fellow team members are responding to the questions and things like that. We've been getting a lot of positive feedback from it, a lot of people participating, so I think that's helpful. We've also did a chat with more of our upper leadership, just video calls, checking in, seeing how they're doing. So I think things like that will help.
Absolutely. No, I really appreciate that. And creating a two-way conversation is kind of what it sounds like you're doing. Even, through the SurveyMonkey, you're asking for their input, but then you're kind of sharing with everybody what the results were, right? So you're keeping that conversation going as it goes. That's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. Cool. Okay, fantastic. So with that, let's go ahead and get back to our content. So thank you very much, everybody who shared. We'll do this for our other ones as well, the other areas that we'll talk about. And really, my challenge for you with this one and all of them is really going to be thinking about how can you, if you're not doing it already, but how can you provide this positive attention to your team? Is it through a survey? Is it through a phone call? Is it through a handwritten note? I know that the phone calls and the handwritten notes, they don't sound new and exciting, and they might be even a little old fashioned, but they work. They really do work because they're very personal. And this is the time to be personal with people. So again, my challenge to you is to think about how can we provide some personal and positive attention to people so that they will still want to engage with us. Excellent, excellent. So with that, we're going to go on to the next one, which is all about connection. And to me, especially from a leadership standpoint, this is about facilitating opportunities to find common ground and to form bonds. And again, what we do in this industry is all about connections. I can't tell you how many people that I've asked this question to, when I'm interacting with people, in person especially, and I'll say, what's kept you in this industry for so long? And almost 99% of the time, people will say it's the people. It's the people I get to work with. It's the people I get to serve. It's the people that I get to interact with every single day. And so these connections are really, really critical. So as a leader, excuse me, how do you facilitate some of these connections, whether it's through some of the suggestions we've heard already, or new or different ways to create these connections? And I really think there's three different areas that we need to kind of focus on. Number one is the connection with you as a leader. So if you have direct reports that have been, maybe they're now working from home, or they've been furloughed, or whatever it is, right? That could be a connection that you want to work on. Also, I think it's important for peers to remain connected right now. So finding ways to get peers to either talk to each other, stay connected, be part of each other's lives at this time when they normally would be coming to work and interacting with people without much thought. Right now, we have to facilitate that and find ways to get people connected. But I also think it's important for people to really connect with your organization. So when we talk about team member and employee engagement, what are they engaged with, right? They're engaged with you as a person, they're engaged with their peers, and they're engaged with the organization. And I think we have to be the ones to take the first step in those engagements. So what are we doing to get ourselves out there as a manager to help people either get to know us or to understand that we're all going through things together? I know the folks at Lagoon had started to do some videos where they said, okay, as a manager, here's why I love to be at Lagoon, or here's my favorite game, or whatever it is, just different ways to get to know the employees. And then you can post those and let your employees see those, and maybe they'll respond, and maybe there's going to be some interaction there. But again, it's just a way to kind of connect. And I think one of the biggest ways, whether it's through a video or a newsletter or through a social media blast, one of the best ways to connect is obviously through communication. So when we talk about communicating with our teams, some people say, well, I'm not really sure what to say. Find something. Find something to say that can be positive. If you don't have any company news that day, that's okay. Highlight a team member. If you've highlighted a team member before, highlight a section of your business. Find some way to thank someone. Elicit some feedback from your team members and say, who would you like to highlight? Who's been someone that you've really been appreciative of? Right? Maybe it's the maintenance team, or maybe it's the games team, or whoever it is, but share something. If you've committed to saying, hey, we're going to communicate every morning at 9 a.m., then you better be communicating something at 9 a.m. Now it's got to be something that they're going to engage with. So not just fluff, but something that either it can help them get to know their team members, it can help them connect in some way, or it can be company information if you've got something like that to share. Now, one of the important things here that I've talked to many people about is just this concept of transparency. And, I think we all know that we're going through something. We all know that our companies are suffering. We all know that we as human beings are suffering. So let's not sugarcoat that, right? We don't want to, maybe give everybody our financials, but let them know that here's what's happening with your organization. And here's how, your, situation right now is impacting that. So, being very clear and very transparent about those things can really help engage people, because they'll know that you're being honest about it. And that's really key, that they know that you're being honest, and they know that you're giving them the straight story, even if you don't have all of the answers. Now, one of the questions that comes up around this, and some people put this in their form when you signed up, was really engaging and connecting with furloughed employees. And a lot of people have said, well, my company has said I'm really not allowed to call or talk to my furloughed employees because it might be construed as work. And I was actually talking to a lawyer down in Miami, and she says, absolutely, you have a right to be human. You have a right to call them and find out how they're doing. You have a right to show genuine concern and connect with them on a personal level. Of course, you don't have a right to ask them to do anything or, think about work in any way. So you've got to be really careful about that conversation, but it shouldn't be an all or nothing type of thing. So you can still connect with them, and you can still interface with them, as long as it's not about work at all. Okay, so some of the ways that I've seen people really engaging with their teams, doing Facebook Lives where people can do a question and answer, and again, get to know the team, get to know what's going on with the company, maybe even get to know their managers a little bit better. Some people have been doing Zoom games, so like Zoom bingo, or you guys are very, very creative. So you guys can find ways. If you just know that your goal is to connect, how can you do that? Can you play a board game over Zoom? Can you do some other activity where you're just getting a couple of people together and you're allowing people to share a moment that may have nothing to do with work, but you're just able to get those folks together? One story I'll share with you was that one of the people that wanted to be on the call today was from Konga Park in Norway. And she emailed me and she said, I'm so sorry, but I've got a Zoom call with my team at the exact same time. And she says, I don't want to miss it. And I was like, good, don't worry about this webinar. You take care of your team members. But I think that one of the big lessons here is that if you're committed to something, that if you keep that commitment, that helps breed engagement as well, because they know that you're going to follow through on your commitments. So again, if you said, hey, we're going to talk at 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning, then we better be talking at 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning. So following through with your commitments is a really great way in general, but especially now, to give people some clarity, give them a sense of normalcy. I mentioned that coaching program that I talked about before. There was a conversation like, do we stop this coaching program now that everybody's shut down? And the consensus was, let's keep it going to give these folks a little bit of normalcy, to give them, something to do that is not necessarily COVID-19 related. So thinking about all those kind of things, keeping people connected in many different ways. There's lots of different ways, certainly, that you can do that. So again, I would love to hear ways that you are keeping your team members connected, and even some creative things that you're doing that you might have some ideas on. So I see Ryan Allen has his hand raised, if I can find him on the thing, but go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so the one thing that we've done, talking about the honesty and that peer-to-peer communication piece, one thing that we've done at Carowinds that we took from one of the choreographers' views actually is she walks into every rehearsal and asks the cast if they're 5 and alive and 1 are done. And what we've started doing with that is just checking ourselves and seeing who needs more support today or who doesn't want to be part of conversations, and really respecting people's space just by putting up a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And it's been really helpful for us to kind of even circling back at, offline with someone to make sure they're doing okay. But also we do that with our teams too, and we're doing those Zoom calls. It's been really helpful for us.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. Rob Kareem from Canada's Wonderland, you've got your hand up too. Go ahead.
Yeah, we've done a couple of Zoom calls with our area supervisor team. Some of it's just to keep them in the loop about what's going on, but a lot more of it, especially recently, our last call has been just to be social with them. That's a huge part of our core group is staying connected with our area supervisors. And then we've used an app called House Party, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. There's a couple games on there that are built into the program, and that's helped us to stay engaged with them as well.
Fantastic. And again, not necessarily work related, but fun, right? Awesome. Ashley Urbanski, you've got something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, to stay connected with our team, I'm sure some of you have used Kahoot for like training or just fun games. We've been doing that. We'll send it out weekly. Of course, we don't make it work related or ask them work related questions, but we'll have fun, maybe relevant like pop culture things about our park that they might not know. So like trivia, true and false. And then we do another section. We got them to send their baby pictures to us, and then they have to guess. So we'll do that every week. And we've had a good amount of participation with that, which has been great. I think kind of moving forward, it'd be really nice to do something where we check in on them, instead of just making it fun, of course. So we're working on that, but we've had success with Kahoot. I think they enjoy it. It's pretty easy to send out every week.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I appreciate that, Ashley. Thank you so much. Adam, we'll get to you, and then we're going to get back to our content. So Adam Woodall from Holiday World.
Yeah. So we've used Zoom and Facebook Live sometimes at the same time to communicate with our staff. And one of the things that we've done in a meeting with some of our team is after giving some like updates from the park, we kind of put that off to the side and say, you know, you guys know we're working from home. Let's tell you some things that we're all doing together during quarantine. So someone bought a random lightsaber for my impulse purchase, and you know, that was a good laugh. And people were talking about their pets, and someone busted out an Nintendo 64 for the first time in many years, and just kind of got everyone on the same level, and it made everyone's spirits kind of go up from.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Adam. I love the creativity and the different things that are happening. And I think this really lends itself to this conversation of situational employee engagement and what that might mean. And, you know, even as we go through different weeks leading up to hopefully, you know, an opening at some point, you know, this could change, right? You know, what this looks like. And even Ashley was mentioning it, that, you know, we're reaching out to have fun, but we also may want to reach out and you know, kind of find out how people are and how they're feeling and how they're doing. And, you know, maybe they're in one of those grief cycles, and we need to kind of reach out and be a resource for them for that. So thank you everybody for your input on that. I certainly do appreciate that. We'll go back to looking at the screen again. And again, as I mentioned with attention, here's your challenge, is to figure out, you know, how do we provide these connections with our teams? How do we provide connections that are going to be meaningful, whether it's with, you know, somebody that's on the management team, and don't forget about your management team, but also with those frontline employees. It could be with somebody who's been furloughed. It could be somebody with, you know, that again started off the season already. You've started your leadership training, and now they're on pause, on hold, and you're hoping they're going to come back. But how do you connect with them, and how do you find common ground and allow them and facilitate forming some bonds with people? Because ultimately, again, we're a people business, and people stay in this business because it's a people business, and we want to continue to be around people. So thank you again for all of that input. The last thing we'll talk about here that is a real emotional need for everybody is to have some sort of purpose, to have some sort of reason to get up and get out of bed in the morning. And I think one of the things that can be really challenging right now is if you're watching the news too much, if you're, you know, scrolling through and seeing all the bad stuff potentially, that you're not remembering that there's so much good that's still happening. And I've been, you know, personally inspired, you know, seeing all the stories of all the good stuff that people are doing out there. And, you know, I think a lot of this has to do with employers focusing on, okay, how can I help my team, you know, have some purpose, right? Help them find that. And so kind of the way I look at this is something to work on and to work for. So if you have people that are still getting paid, you know, obviously, you know, you want them to be working on something, right? And my good friend Tim down at the Omaha Children's Museum, he said that he's been giving people, you know, just really audacious goals, and maybe it's within their scope, and maybe it's not, but you know, he's been able to kind of see people rise to the occasion, if you will. But it gives people something to work toward, and gives people something that they can focus on that's not so doom and gloom. If you've got people that are not being paid, then maybe it's, you know, organizing some volunteer opportunities. I know a lot of places have donated, you know, their food supply maybe to a local shelter or something, or, you know, there's community efforts where they need volunteers, and, you know, you can get your team members that aren't working, you know, send out an email and say, hey, we've got this volunteer opportunity. We need people to, of course, stay distant and wear your mask and gloves, but, you know, you might help unload a truck, or you might help, you know, deliver something. I think, you know, as people in this industry who love to serve, who love to entertain, who love to help other people, that can be a purpose that we help give people. We can give people a reason to get up and help somebody else. And I think everybody on the call probably knows that, you know, how good it feels when you get to help someone else. Yeah, you know, you remember, you know, kind of the stuff you're going through, but you know, you've got people that are out there suffering, and probably maybe even suffering worse than you. So if you can reach out and help them, it can really, you know, really help you feel good about in your own little soul, right? And then if that's something that is organized through the company, that purpose is now sort of attached to, working with this group of people and actually being engaged back with the company. A couple other things that I've seen people do. Also with the Omaha Children's Museum, they've got a guy named Ben who loves to tinker, right? And, while he's not at the museum, he's found things at home to tinker with. And they set up a studio where he can record those and then send that out to their guests so they can see him tinker with things around the house and, put that out as a video for their guests. So I think that does a couple of things. Number one, it kind of allows Ben to, tinker and do the things that he loves anyway and fulfill his own purpose. But it also allows him to help the company, because so much of what we're doing right now, so much of what we're trying to do is to continue to re-engage our guests, right? Because we want our guests to come back. Well, why not help your team members do that? If they can do a quick video, if they can help it with that effort in any way, shape, or form to put those things out for your guests, why not? Use them for that purpose as well. I know a lot of places with animals, their zookeepers are doing videos, kind of behind the scenes things of what's going on with the animals. They get to do what they love. They get to share with the guests what's going on, and they get to live and fulfill their own purpose. I think that's all I had for that one. But I'd love to hear what some things you might be doing to help find and give people some purpose at this time that might be helpful for them. So I see that Ron has his hand up again. I don't know if it's still left up from before, but if you'd like to share again, we'd love to hear from you. No, it's still up from before? Okay, fantastic. Anybody else have something that you're doing to help give people purpose? This is kind of a tougher one, especially if you have people that are furloughed and it's a little harder. Rob, your hand is still up. I don't know if it's still up from the last one, but Matarand, your hand is up. Go for it.
I think one thing our executive director has talked about a lot is that we're going to be part of the healing process, that this has been traumatic on everybody. And so families are maybe feeling too connected, being at home and doing homeschooling and being cooped up in the house. So I think we're finding some purpose and mission in the idea that when we open back up, that this is going to be part of healing from this unfortunate time. So.
Yeah, and I would agree. And I think one of the other things that we can do to help give people purpose is knowing that, we're going to be part of the healing process and getting people to think about what that's going to look like, right? When we do get to reopen, because so much of what we're thinking about now is social distancing and what's going on, in our homes and things like that. But let's start getting those wheels turning about what might be happening when our doors do reopen. So I think that's an excellent point. So thank you for that, Matt. I appreciate that. So we'll head back and, thinking about purpose again, part of your challenge as a leader is to figure out those ways that we can provide some sort of purpose for people or give them an opportunity to share their own purpose so that they can do something that they love, they can enjoy themselves, they can help other people, they can serve other people just like they would be at your facility, but now they're just doing it a little differently. So getting back to all three of these, thinking about attention, connection, and purpose, to me, again, this is really our roadmap to situational employee engagement, because you can take any situation and you can say, okay, what do our team members need for attention in this situation? How do we provide some connection here? What's our purpose? How do we provide purpose for them? Think about when our doors open and our gates open again, it's going to be the same thing with that soul breadwinner that's coming to the park and they're trying to look for as many hours as they can, or that brand new team member, they're going to be looking for those same things. So attention, connection, and purpose. And again, getting back to that same question of what do your team members need and trying to fulfill that need, that's a great way to kind of start the conversation of employee engagement. But I don't want you to forget about somebody else, and that is you. We've been talking a lot about our team members. We've been talking, a lot about the people that were wanting to come back, but you also need those exact same things. You're human beings, right? You need attention, you need connection, you need purpose. And if you can find ways to bring those into your life, even if it's talking to your boss and saying, look, here's what I need. Right. I'm feeling like I'm maybe not in the best place right now. So I need something. I need somebody to listen to me. I need whatever it is, right? So I don't want us to get out of this conversation and not acknowledge that everybody on this call is also a human being, and everybody on this call also has needs. So if there's anything that I can do to fulfill those needs, if there's something that, even if it's a peer or a friend, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know we talked about, some of our team members hesitating to reach out. You guys are a little different. I think you will reach out if you have those needs. So please feel free to do that. And then just as we kind of wrap up, the last thing I want to kind of think about is whatever you're thinking about doing, whatever you're thinking about in terms of creating an employee engagement process, at this point especially, I think it's important that we err on the side of compassion. Because when you think about, just providing some attention, you think about providing some connection with people, when you think about purpose, if you are naturally providing, an environment of compassion and empathy, you're much more naturally going to want to provide, people the right kind of attention and positive attention and opportunities to connect and giving them purpose. So, a lot of times in safety, we talk about err on the side of caution. Well, I think in the world of team members, and especially in the terms of in terms of engagement, we need to err on the side of compassion. So that's kind of the last thought that I'd like to leave you with on this particular webinar. So with that, as I mentioned in the beginning, I wanted to give you some other ways that we can continue these conversations and make sure that you have all the resources that you can possibly have. So again, my phone number and my email are up there. After this call, I will be sending out a survey about this session, and I would love any feedback that you have, the good, the bad, the ugly. Also, in that email will be some links to other resources, like the things that I'm going to talk about here in just a second. But again, feel free to share anything that you have in terms of feedback, and also other topics that you might want to hear about in the future. So one of the things that I started doing were these free 30-minute calls, and some of the people on the call today have taken advantage of that. And simply signing up for my Calendly link, I can never say that, but signing up for that, you can sign up for a free 30-minute call. We can talk about anything you'd like. We can talk about COVID-19. We could talk about ice cube recipes. Really doesn't matter to me. If you just need somebody to listen to, sign up for one of those and we can continue the conversations. Also, many of you are also already in the Facebook All Clear group. So that's a private Facebook group that I'll be sending you a link to if you're not in that already. It's a great opportunity for leaders in the attractions industry to of course, stay connected with one another. Of course, books. Many of you know that I've written a couple of books, and books are great for social distancing. I'll just put that out there. And then some of you also know about the podcast that I do, the Attraction Pros podcast, free podcast. We've also been doing a COVID-19 video series. So we've started, reaching out to different operators and manufacturers and talking to them about how they're pivoting their business. And that's a special video series that my co-host Josh and I have been doing to really keep everybody kind of up to date. And then when the time is right, I also offer online workshops and coaching programs and, things that can help you make sure that you as a leader are ready to take the next steps in your leadership development and in your leadership journey. I know that right now a lot of people are not, spending a lot of money on training, and I totally get that. But I do want to let you know that I've got those virtual resources out there in case that's something you wanted to focus on or take advantage of. So also, last thing is that I will give anybody 1,000 bonus points if you can tell me what roller coaster I'm on in that picture. I don't really know what the bonus points are for, but you get 1,000 of them. So I again want to thank you very much all for your time. We've got about 2 minutes officially left on the call. I'm going to go back to the gallery view so I can see you guys again, see if anybody has any questions specifically about this webinar. Let's see. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. And if you do have any questions, please raise your hand. Let me know, and we can answer those now. Or if you want to stay on a little bit longer, I'm happy to do that as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and end the webinar officially so that you can get on to your next thing for today. Thank you very much for your time today. I certainly do appreciate it. And please feel free to reach out if there's anything that I can do for you. Sign up for a call. let's just chat. We will get through this together, and remember to err on the side of compassion. Thank you all very much for your time today.